Kids, we talked about this too, are so much more chronically online than we were as kids. I think it's important if you have boys to try to get them into something that they like, where they're also surrounded by other boys and men that they can look up to.
But what happened is, though, you got rid of the ones to defend. Because what happens when you don't have the protectors? Where did they go?
Right.
They got crushed. Their spirits got crushed. Their souls got crushed. Those young kids got told, no, don't be masculine, be feminine as a boy. Now you don't have any protectors.
By taking those things away from men. And we did it out of fear, which again, it's like women were angry at men all those years ago and still are now because of the fear. They were afraid that they wouldn't have rights. Like we used to not have rights back then, and they were angry. And now women are afraid of how violent men can get now. It's not just about these guys being afraid and being angry. Like we're all living from this place of extreme fear and extreme anger. And that's why all the content that perpetuates anger and fear goes so well. Basically, the whole podcast is talking about how men don't have outlets to be men anymore in the proper way. We've taken away Boy Scouts. Men don't have like communities of other men to talk to about things anymore. And that is also why so many of these boys and men are going towards these masculine figures, because they're essentially too some of the only ones, or they're the loudest ones, right? Because they're so angry. And so instead of a 13-year-old having Boy Scouts to go to, or even like you said, just committing for a year to try out football and then maybe try out some other sort of thing that they're interested in, we've taken those things away as a society because we were trying to course correct, you know, some of the bad, quote, bad masculine behavior that we saw before. But now, honestly, a lot of the red pill, black pill stuff is a lot worse than what we even saw before. And now these men and boys don't have an outlet to be supported by actual masculine men that will help them learn resilience and have confidence in themselves and kind of keep them from experiencing this hopelessness. And I think some of it too is also, again, the rise of technology. And, you know, kids, we talked about this too, are so much more chronically online than we were as kids. And so, you know, I think it's important if you have boys to try to get them into something that they like, where they're also surrounded by
competition,
other boys and men that they can look up to. They were talking about in the podcast episode that there's not a lot of male teachers anymore, and there's not a lot of like coaches because men aren't getting that recognition that they used to before. So these boys are, you know, having a harder time finding these men to really look up to, especially if they're in a single mother household. And they talked about how even if you're a single mother, to get your sons around men that you trust, that could be like your family members, your neighbor, you know, people that you look up to as a man, and allow your son to be around that person when you're picking a partner as a woman, to really, you know, if you have sons, to really think about the influence that he would also have on your children. And the whole episode was just really great at, you know, showing that we tried as a society to, quote, do the right thing and to make things more peaceful by feminizing it. But that isn't what is appropriate for men and boys. And they need that healthy masculine outlet. And so we need to now as a society to bring those things back in the correct way, because now we've seen how doing that and then allowing people doing it in the incorrect way to take over that space is damaging our men and boys in society.
Well, it's like I was saying, if you take away guns from a society, who has the guns?
The criminals.
Yeah. And that's not who so masculinity, when you try to feminize society, do you get rid of some of the, are you trying to get rid of some of the bad aspects of of bad masculine actors. Toxic masculinity isn't even a thing because masculinity is masculinity. But like I was telling you, one of my friends, Jack Donovan, wrote a book called The Way of Men, and in that book he talks about this idea that there's men and there's good men, but being a man and being a good man are not the same thing. You can be a man, you can be extremely masculine and not be a good man.
Right.
It's true. It's possible, right? So when you try to get rid of that element by getting rid of masculinity, because with masculinity comes the good and the bad,
right,
you end up with just the bad. Because the guys that, just like the criminals who don't care about the gun laws, the guys that are masculine, that are manly, that are bad, they don't care that you're trying to feminize society. They're going to rebel against that. They're going to do whatever the hell that they want to do. And but what happened is, though, you got rid of the ones to defend. Because what happens when you don't have the protectors? Those guys aren't. Where did they go? Right. They got crushed. Their spirits got crushed. Their souls got crushed. Those young kids got told, no, don't be masculine, be feminist, or be effeminate as a boy. And now you don't have any protectors. Now you don't, because what happened?
That's why the dating scene is the way that it is today. And they talked about that in the podcast episode too, is that women are like, there's no good men left, you know? But it's like, we as a society also did this to men. We didn't give them the proper outlets for them to be masculine. And we were so afraid for them to be masculine in the wrong way that we made them more feminine.
Right.
And then now we're craving as women, as feminine women, wanting to be feminine again, these masculine men, but we destroyed them in a way.
And in all these areas, right? It used to be, you know, I mean, this is not going to be popular opinion, but I'll say it anyway, is that, you know, hey, like police, firefighter, especially military, that used to be man, not a woman. Woman's role is not to put her life on the line, and I appreciate the women that do that. I think they do it for a good reason, and I'm not trying to knock them, but I'm saying that you've taken away, like as a society, we've taken away the role for men to be the ones who go and fight in the war.
But I also think that they don't want to too, because they've been feminized. And so like a woman should be like, I don't really want to be a police officer to like risk my life. And I have a woman friend that is a police officer, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with her, but it's like, you know, she's also probably stepping up because there's men that don't want to step up at all.
It's nothing to say anything bad against women that do those things, but they would have to acknowledge that they have to be in their masculine to do it, right? So, but what I'm saying is, though, as society, because we've allowed these things, we've displaced men in the roles that men are congratulated in sports, even in sports too, right? It's like, oh, now there's WNBA and it's like, it's fine, like, you know, it's not, I'm not saying that women can't play a sport, but what I'm saying is that like these areas where men were looked up upon as being masculine, as winning, as victorious, like where they conquer, where they fight each other, like those are masculine domains that need to be. The same thing with the Boy Scouts right now. It's like everybody scouts. You need to have some things where men can fight other men, challenge other men, be in competition with other men,
and do
like
hard stuff
can do
together.
stuff that makes them, that gives a value to being a man in society, right? That women, they don't get that place. They have their own place, you know, and it's important, because if you don't have that, then these boys don't have the environments. They don't have the masculine role models. They don't have anything to, why is it good to be a man? What is masculine? It's like, no, women can do this. Women can do everything a man can do. Then, okay, well then where do what place do I have? You know, it's like,
confusing.
I get it. I agree that women can do, you know, things that a man can do, but that's not the message that we need to give. We need to say, oh no, you're awesome because you're a man, and no, you're so strong, you're so masculine, you're so whatever it is, open this pickle jar for me, right? Like those are the things that make a boy, because what, you know, we talked about this before, a boy wants to be a hero.
Yeah.
And we have to allow men to be heroes if we want to solve this problem.
Well, and I think too, I was thinking about this the other day, that feminists, they'll, you know, say that it's about women doing what they want to do and things like that. And it's about, you know, equality. But in that same breath, though, we've taken away these outlets for men,
Yeah.
and we can still have them.
Right.
Like, there's still Girl Scouts, but they can't have them. And
Right.
that's not fair.
No.
Like, I understand the fear of men following the wrong path, but because we made it unfair by we can have our groups
Right.
and you can't,
Right.
like us as women and men can't,
Yeah.
we've actually created more power for those groups of men that as women we didn't want men following.
I told you, I walked into the gym that they still have the sign up that says hiring female janitor. And you said it's because they might need to clean the women's restroom. But I thought about that later. I thought about it the next day. Imagine if the sign said hiring male janitor. There would have been, that sign would not have lasted for 24 hours, that 24-hour fitness. Because every woman that walked in that gym would have said, I need to talk to the manager. What is this? And it would have been gone. But it's acceptable. You see what I'm saying? It's just a small example of this, of where society has moved, where it's okay to create a space that creates something specifically for women, but it's not okay to create something specifically for men.
Yeah, well, and it's not fair, like I said, and men deserve to have their groups of men and organizations that are just for them and things like that, just like we do as women. And by acting like we deserve it and men don't, that's actually goes against everything that I would think that being a feminist is for. You know, like feminist is for women, but they say that it's for equality and like everyone being treated the same, but yet we're not treating men the same. And, you know, that is what I really come to realize. And even, like I said, the podcast and this Netflix show is showing the damage we've actually created by taking those things away from men. And we did it out of fear, which again, it's like, you know, women were angry at men all those years ago and still are now because of the fear.
Right.
Like they were afraid that they wouldn't have rights. Like we used to not have rights back then and they were angry. And now, you know, women are afraid of how violent men can get now.
Right.
And so they're angry at them. And it's like, it's not just about these guys being afraid and being angry. Like we're all living from this place of extreme fear and extreme anger. And that's why all the content that perpetuates anger and fear goes so well. Right. I mean, you have someone that you know, and his whole content is just making things about stuff that's happening in the news or the world to like create this fear in people because that's what gets the views, right? Like if we post things that make people freak out or make them angry, that's what's going to get the views. And we care more about views. We care more about likes. We care more about all these things that don't really matter than the things we've talked about this entire episode, which is like having the growth mindset and having resilience and having confidence in yourself and empathizing and having compassion for someone that's different than you and, you know, creating these safe, healthy spaces for men and boys to be masculine and to learn how to be a man in the right way. And that's also too why what you do with like Bulldog Mindset is so important because you really know how to be a man in the proper way and come from a place of love. And you were once a boy in high school that wrote a girl a love letter and she didn't want to go out with you. Like I like if anybody should be like a model or like someone that boys should be look up to, it should be you. And so the world needs more men like you and men who are trying to teach both boys and men how to do things in the right way. And I hope that us talking about this and like I said, with this Netflix show, I am a little bit worried, like you said, that it's still going to like demonize men and not get the empathy that it really should. But the Diary of a CEO podcast that talked about this was great. They did it in a fantastic way. You know, maybe I've blamed society more than they did when they explained it. But I think it's also important for us to be like, we made a mistake.